Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics. We get started as we do each and every week by introducing my two co-hosts. There is Ruben Bressler.
Hello.
There's Aaron Campbell. And we begin, as we do, with the first pick. The first pick this week is that Wizards picked the Community Cup members for us. And that was a very unique situation that I did not see coming. As I'll kind of quote from yourself, Ruben, you had mentioned here that, you know, what was it? This year you might have noticed that there wasn't a community vote to choose these guys and gals. Boo, right? Right.
Yeah, right.
Because
so I just cherry-picked that quote from their announcement article, and it was like the second thing they said. And it was just mind-boggling that they were just like, now, I know we did this thing that no one expected and clearly nobody wanted, but hear us out. What are you... I'm sorry, continue with the intro.
No, it's fine. So, you know, basically...
to blow some people up about it.
Right. Ruben's chomping at the bit, but I'm going to kind of give people an overview if you don't know exactly what we're talking about. The Community Cup has happened for many years now, where Wizards brings a group outside of Wizards, the community, and they bring a group inside of Wizards, which is like the R&D teams and people who work on Magic and Magic Online. And they clash them together for a sort of a long weekends type of multi-day event for the Community Cup, and they get to play on Magic Online, and they do live coverage of it, and they do all these sort of wacky, crazy things, and it's really fun and neat. And the community members get flown in from all over the place. And originally, until this year, you were voted into such places, you know, by the community themselves. They had to go to a page and say, I want Aaron Campbell, I want Evan Irwin, I want Ruben Bressler. Here is my vote for this person. I or anybody, you know, Aaron or Ruben would say on their social media, hey, I want to go to this thing. Would you please help me go to this thing because it would mean a lot to me, and so on and so forth. And so Wizards this year decided, like, there was questions of where is the voting? What happened to announcing the voting window is open and that people need to, you know, go here to vote and so on and so forth. And there was this big hubbub of, oh my God, they got rid of the Community Cup and they didn't say anything about it. And then Trick came out and said, no, the Community Cup is happening. And then there was lots of crickets. And then today. So it's one of those things, like, you know, when we make the lineup for Magic Mics every week, sometimes I go, man, I hope we got something to talk about, you know?
Yeah.
And Wizards is like, here you go.
Yeah,
We're
here
like,
you go, kids.
yeah,
Enjoy.
this is great. So,
Yeah.
Ruben, give me your take on this situation as succinctly as you can.
Yeah, as succinctly as I can. All right, we're going to be here for a couple hours. No. First of all, I want to be very clear. I am super pleased with the team that we ended up with. Mm-hmm. The community team, the 2015 community team, is a good representation. It's got a bunch of the most popular streamers, including Newmont, who's been on the Community Cup team before, which was kind of a weird choice, but he is a fabulous representative and community member, and he's if I were picking people, he would be on the top of the list of people I would want representing the Magic community. Mm-hmm. He's fabulous. A couple other streamers, the women from Magic the Amateuring, better looking and better at Magic, Brian Kibler is on the team this year. So I love the whole team. I think that they're all great, and I'm going to be watching it, rooting for our team, our community team, September 19th and 20th. I'm not going to stop rooting for our guys. And I don't think down the evil empire.
And I don't think anyone, and girls. And I don't think anyone who, or any three of us, and honestly, anyone that I've seen say anything, you know, criticizing their decision to pick the community members it's the community members' fault.
Right.
So just so we can have that up front.
I feel super bad for the community members who are on this year's team, who instead of us talking about how awesome they are, we are instead talking about how not awesome the way they got on the team was. And that's horrid for them specifically, because now they have this thundercloud hanging over their head the entire time. Mm-hmm. So my qualm is not with the players. My argument is not with them. My argument is with the abrupt, unannounced, unexplained, non-community based change to how the team was chosen. You know, in past years, as you mentioned, the Cup team, the community team was chosen by the community. Weird, right?
What?
People's Choice Awards. and instead of an Oscars, which was handled by the Academy, which is a shadowy, shadow organization, which is basically how they were chosen this year.
Like the
which,
DCI?
Like the DCI. If that's how it was always handled, then we wouldn't care. But changing it this way is taking away a thing that people in the community cared about, at least a little bit, and then saying, yeah, you don't get to have this anymore. Which, as someone who's chiefly known as a community member, I'm not known as a player, I'm not a judge, I am not known as those things chiefly. I'm known as a community figurehead. The Community Cup is a big deal for me. And I like the build up to the Community Cup. The nomination process was my favorite time in Magic social media of the year. We got to submit nominations for people that we truly respect and enjoy. We got to write down why Aaron Campbell, Evan Irwin, Ruben Bressler. I wrote an article on Matt Kranstuber for 3 years in a row. Shout out to K-Stu. Saying why he was a pillar of the podcasting community and of the MTGO streaming community, and why he deserved to be on the Community Cup team. He never got on, which I think is a damn shame. But I digress from my Kranstuber manifesto. But everyone in the world got to write a couple paragraphs on lesser-known streamers, players that streamed occasionally and play a lot of Magic Online, podcasters, stream moderators, message board moderators, people that are behind the scenes that normally wouldn't get a ton of attention. But if you're huge into the community, you know who all these people are. And they would have paragraphs and articles and tweets and lots of lovely things people that they probably never met had to say about them. And they could say, this guy had a positive impact on my life, even though I've never met him and he lives half a world away. And it led to this coronation of sorts, where it was often on live television, on live Twitch at some tournament. They would be like, and now the Community Cup team. When Reed was on the team, I think it was last year, Reed was at the event they announced it at. So they got to talk to him year before. It was 2 years ago. They just got announced with him there to say, hey, check out this cool thing. And you got to put the community up on this pedestal. If only for a few minutes. You got to put these few people who usually had, 250 people in their stream, or, handled a chat room that had 500 people in it and didn't get a ton of attention. Now they're on television. Now everyone gets to see these people that are so important to the community at large. And this year, instead of that, what we got was a cold, factory-sealed, cold compressed, gross, no build-up, no community involvement, no love fest, press release announcement. And all of that love is gone, and we don't get any of it back. There's no way we can say, this is who I would have chosen. It's not like Hall of Fame voting. It was actually a very similar process to Hall of Fame voting. We could say, this is this guy's accolades. This is why I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. This is this guy's accolades. This is why they should be on the Magic Online Community Cup team. I think that X person deserves to represent our community because they're awesome and they support Magic. But we don't get to do that anymore.
I think that's a fantastic sort of analogy of saying, and Aaron, I'm not trying to sort of cut you off. You legitimately would rather not discuss this topic per se. Am I correct in that?
I kind of agree with what Ruben said in that, I choose, I was on the Community Cup team last year, and it was probably one of the best moments of my life, and I'm not even understating it. I was so proud to be chosen, and I had so much fun, and it's something I literally think about every day. And to, like Ruben said, it's like instead of talking about this for being the awesome event that it is and for how amazing these people are, instead we're mired in controversy and scandal and opinions and negativity. And I have such fond memories of the event that it pains me to see that this is what it has become. This is not how I think of my experience, and this is not how I planned on us talking about the experience either. And that's not to say that these opinions are not valid. I think that the criticism regarding Kenji being chosen for a second year is valid. I think the criticism for how this was done without the vote is valid. Like I said, it just hurts me to see that it's come to this, because this is not how I would like this to be referred to as.
So sure. I'll do the following. I'm just going to go off just a little while more. I'll cut my hours short, and I'll just go off a little bit more.
You're
and
fine.
Then what we're going to do is we're going to stop complaining about the system and then talk about the people. Because these people deserve to represent our community.
I have one quibble.
We've got all this nomination out of our system, all the grossness out of our system. Then we can get on to the actual business of liking the people supporting our community.
Well, I do have one thing that bothered me, and I thought you were going to cover it. So if you don't, I'll jump in. But,
sure.
Well,
what was it?
What was that?
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that sort of made me bristle a little bit was there were these conspiracy theories going around that when people saw that the voting wasn't going to happen, there were people who started saying, well, the joke's on you if you thought the voting even mattered to begin with.
Right.
And they were alluding to the fact almost that Wizards basically had our pictures on a dartboard and basically chose us that way. And that made me feel a little defensive because I still get people that come up to me at events and say, I voted for you. I'm so glad that you were there. And to me, when I hear things like that, it does feel, and none of you have said that, like you and Devin have not said that, but when people say it never mattered to begin with, that feels like a bit of a slap in the face to me, because I did campaign and I did get people that were proud of me being there, and to say that that all didn't matter and that their votes didn't matter and that support didn't matter, when I think of the team that I was on too, it's like every one of us deserved to be there, and to say that none of that mattered, that we were picked because we were popular, because we were pretty or whatever, that always makes me kind of uncomfortable.
Right, and the last bit for me in terms of the analogy I was talking about earlier was to the Hall of Fame. If the Hall of Fame was just, Wizards comes down from the tower and gives you the piece of paper and says, these are the people in the Hall of Fame this year, you're like, but we really got a kick out of talking about it, and people trying to campaign or people literally changing their careers and then trying to make a point of doing things differently in order to get there, in order to even talk about it and say, hey, this is a thing that's important to me. I felt I've tried to make changes this year. This is what I've done over the past year. I want to get in the Hall, and here's why. That's a thing that's gone. And to say that, that on the community side of that, on the not pro player, I don't have 100 pro points side of that is no longer available or viable, I think that's an issue, because it feels like we had all this voice and we had all these good feelings and good vibes and people talking about themselves, and yes, it was partially a popularity contest or whatever, but there was a world 7-8 years ago, because I'm old, there was the Magic Invitational, and which me and Steven Menendian made it into. I was the storyteller, and I got in over Gerard Fabiano, and that was a big deal because all the pros knew Gerard. They didn't know who I was. I was just some dude making videos in Tennessee, and who is this clown? And as soon as I knew that I was even on the ballot, I busted my hump. I talked about it. I wanted people to help me out to get there. I made a video that was just completely ridiculous, 5 minutes of the silliest crap that I could come up with to make people laugh and say, hey, I want to go to the Invitational and I want to document it with video. The episodes that came out of it were some of the most some of the sort of the memories that I treasure, the most in terms of Magic. When I met, Aaron Forsythe and Mark Rosewater and Mike Turian, all those guys for the first time, went to my first pro tour, got to actually meet all of the pro guys and kind of get into that culture, and it was absolutely amazing. It's really what kickstarted the Magic show and all of my content from that point onward. That was a big deal, and that was a big deal for me, and that was a big deal for for the people. At least I felt it was a big deal for the community to say yes, we like Evan and we want Evan to do the thing. And for me, I was like, oh my god, they like me, they really like me, and I think that's a really cool feeling to be able to get across. And so when Wizards just says, well, by the way, here is what the community is going to be represented by, they lost a lot of that, and so that's all I got.
For a lot of people, the Community Cup and the build-up to it was a springboard to more popularity. More people found out what the deck tease was when Aaron was on the community team. Megan and Maria aren't going to get that for Magic the Amateuring because they sort of just sprung it on us. They're just going to lose that. So in the end, I need to get a lot of things off my chest, and I really hate the way that WotC's done this. So I just need to get it out of my brain before it bores a hole in the back of my skull. So I'm sorry if I go off on some diatribes, but so the announcement article itself said that they changed the way it was done from voting to just picking and choosing to, quote, get some new and awesome blood in here, which has a implication that I hate. It implies that the Magic community couldn't be capable of getting new people, of picking new people, which is either simply wrong or patronizing, neither of which is good. And of course, the first person on the list of this new blood is someone who's represented the community team before, which again, I love Newmont, and if I had to pick one person to represent the Magic Online community, it would be Kenji.
Absolutely.
But he's been on the team before.
Yeah.
And if your argument is that we want some new and awesome blood, you're not supporting your argument. So that's a shoddy placeholder argument for whatever the real reason the change was made. So I wanted to, like, and also some people were saying some things on social media that were, like, really asinine and cynical. And like you said, WotC never really holds a public vote. It's all a sham. You know, the process is a shadow whatever. Well, first of all, that's wrong. Magic knows better, and Magic players know better. And second of all, even if that were true, we would still have the love fest that I was talking about before. We would still have all the nominations, and we get to write stuff, and I get to do my cranny manifesto.
You didn't give him his cranny manifesto, Wizard. Do you see what you do to this man?
I'm gonna punch a hole in a wall if I don't get to write 1,000 words on Matt Grandstuber.
I think I might have him blocked on Twitter.
Wow, what a misclick. He's actually not that active anymore, and we missed our shot at having him on the community team probably, but he's like busy with adult things.
I'll unblock him now, just for you.
He is a true delight.
Okay.
Another popular argument, and I hesitate to even say this, but it came up on social media today, so I wanted to discuss it. Another popular argument I heard is that the community voting could have potentially been taken over by internet troll groups to get a recently suspended player on top of community voting. If this was the reason that the community voting was removed altogether, WotC, this was a classic case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and WotC's decision is even dumber than I originally thought. The simple added sentence of no person who is currently suspended or banned from Magic may be on the Magic community team would have just solved the problem, and it wouldn't have been an issue, and we wouldn't have had to deal with it. So if that's the problem, they're just afraid of social media backlash, then they're just dumber than I can even imagine. And then also, Wizards of the Coast took away a system that was universally liked and helped us self-select. We have self-representation, like a democracy should be. But it also led to discussions on on Magic social media for a week that were nothing but positive. Most Magic discussions, like the one we're having right now, are this sucks, that sucks, this guy sucks, this card sucks, everything sucks. Those discussions didn't happen. This guy's great, this person's great, this show's great, this podcast is great, I love this, everyone's great. Those discussions, we lost all those. We're going to have no positive discussion and no excitement, and all that positivity is being replaced with confusion and anger with the process. And I feel awful for the members of the community team who've earned their right to be here. They've earned their right to be members of the community team, and I've looked at all of their resumes. They've all done great things for the community. But instead of discussing them, we're discussing this, and that sucks. Well, so I hope we go back to the old system next year and they see the error of their ways, because this is horrible, and I don't want to have to go through this again.
Well, I do want to end it on a positive note. You know, I do want to say that, you know, this was one of the best experiences of my life, and I think that everybody deserves a shot at this. You know, we talked about Kenji having his second opportunity, and I love Kenji too, but, like, you know, I think people don't understand the bonds that you can form in a situation like this. You know, I went into it, I was a last minute pick. I was not on the original team. And I went into it thinking it was going to be business. Like, we were going to win and we were going to kill and it was going to be serious. And I didn't think about it in terms of, do I like these people? Am I going to be friends with these people? I was in it solely to win. And the complete opposite was true. Like, it was 110% positive experience. I cried the last day I was there. I did not want to go. And, you know, I think people underestimate, you know, when you spend 4 days, every hour of a day with these people, you get attached to them. And, you know, I think people don't understand what a great experience this can be. And, you know, people do think of it as just, you're there to kill WotC, you're there to get a trophy or whatever. But, you know, these people have an opportunity that I wish everybody got a chance to have. And like you said, it's very sad that that's not what's going to be the focus here. It's going to be all of this messiness, instead of people saying, you're going to love this. Like, these are people you're always going to be in touch with. And, you know, I just wish that got more attention, because I am so grateful that I got to go.
So before I go any further, I'm going to say that Kenji's great. You should all watch Newmont the Nummy. He streamed Magic every single day for 365 days in a row, and no one else has ever done that.
And he has a voice awesome. Like butter.
Yeah, Andy's just awesome, and
Cool guy.
he's fantastic. Joel Larson. It's a soft J.
It's a hard J.
Well,
No,
you can
not.
pronounce it however you want. He's a Pro Tour winner. He's a Platinum Pro, and he streams on Svedska Magic, which I think is going to start picking up again soon.
But
And he's also fantastic, and I got to party with him when I lived in Roanoke, and he came to visit.
My Community Cup buddy from last year, Bjorn, he is the CEO of Svenska Magic, so shout out to my buddy Bjorn. Love you, Bjorn.
Megan and Maria are the hosts of the Magic the Amateuring podcast.
Love
which
them.
is fantastic.
They are
I got
terrific.
introduced to that podcast through Matthias, and it's a really great podcast. I listen to it all the time, and you should follow them at MTAcast on Twitter. SG Doc is Gabe Reale, or Gabe Real. I actually played against him on Moto, and apparently I made him upset when I also tilted off at him, but we'll put that behind us.
Ruben.
And he's another popular Magic streamer, and he knows what he's doing. And Jimmy Wong is awesome. He's on, and most people know him from Video Game High School. And he also has a Commander podcast, and he appears on the Masters of Modern podcast every once in a while. He's fantastic. I've talked with him maybe twice ever, but both times I've talked to him, he's just for somebody who's on this cult TV show that has several 100,000 Twitter followers, he's a fabulous dude. Obviously, Stibbs is great. Adam Shaborsky is fantastic, and I'm coverage writer extraordinaire. He's the content manager at Gathering Magic.
He is the living
always
embodiment
got
of
time
machine.
for anybody. Yeah,
what?
he's unbelievable.
When Stibbs is doing coverage, he'll send me an IM of Pusheen, the typing in the laptop, because that's all he does all day. So whenever I look at Pusheen in the laptop emoji, I think of Stibbs, because that's just Stibbs on camera. Boop, 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 'cause that's all he does. And he's a living embodiment of Pusheen.
Nice.
And the last guy, Anthony De Aconto, a.k.a. Wedge.
Wedge.
I don't have any personal experience with Wedge. But Aaron, you know Wedge a little bit better than I do.
Yeah, Wedge helped me set up my streams. I've been trying to get into streaming, and we actually hung out last week, and so he was helping me set up the stream, and I just happened to have record going. And before I knew it, we had like a 2-hour just kiki session of us just gossiping, and it was almost like an unofficial episode of the Deck Tease, where like I just got to know him a little bit, and we talked about religion and the fame and being a content provider, and I find him to be very lovely and very helpful. I admit I don't watch his videos, but I don't watch a lot of people's videos, so it's nothing against him, but he's been good to me, and he does a lot of good work. His Patreon blew up. He has a lot of followers, a lot of fans, and I'm happy for him.
All right. So those are all of the community members, and again, I want to take nothing away from them. I want them to have the best time. I had an absolute blast when I went. It was terrific. I'll never forget it. I had, there's a video out there if you want to check out the Magic Show, where you can find it. Where I documented that, and we got to go back into R&D and got to all see the meeting rooms and stuff, and where it's actually being developed, and that's awesome. So kudos to those guys. I hope they have a great time. I wish things are different. I hope they change it. Please do. Wizards, you have the power to do this.
I will try not to go so crazy in the future.
Right.
But as a community person, this really irked me.
Yes.
I don't know if you could tell.
I noticed a little tiny bit. We're going to go to Gather the Townsfolk, which is, what was chitter-chattered about this week. The first thing we want to talk about is From the Vault Angels was revealed, and that the From the Vault series is something that's been released every year now for 7-8 years almost, where they go back and they pick a theme, and then they try to sort of stick to that theme, and because they don't want the product to be $1 bajillion, they don't put the most expensive of everything of that theme. So this year it's From the Vault Angels, and while there are a ton of really cool and expensive angels that are involved in this, we've got some really cool angels that have been brought back, and while it's missing Linvala, which I think is the number one thing that people are talking about, like why isn't that card in here? You get the first time the Sarah angel that was illustrated by Rebecca Gay, is printed in a playable size, which is awesome. It's foil, that's sweet. Avison, Angel of Hope's in there, along with Teriel, Reckoner of Souls, the first time that's been available. in foil. So you have Iona Shield of Emeria with new artwork, and one of the controversies was that Iona has been in this, and Iona was in, what other special set was she in?
She's in Modern Masters 2.
Modern Masters 2, Modern Masters 2015. but Linvala is in neither of those. Entreat the Angels I thought was terrific. Baneslayer Angel I thought was fantastic. Platinum Angel was very iconic. It was an incredible card. Really defined a moment in Magic back when it was revealed in Mirrodin. Lightning Angel was a very powerful tournament card for a very long time. Aurelia, the War Leader, I personally feel should have been Linvala, because I think that's kind of the slot which I would have dropped.
Or if you're going to make it a multicolor angel, I liked Aaron's suggestion of Selenia, Dark Angel from Mirage.
Yeah.
Because you've already had a foil Aurelia, and there's no foil Selenia out there, and she's a huge character in the Weatherlight storyline. So
sure. There's Exalted Angel with new artwork. It was the artwork that was used to promote the set when it first came out. I don't get it, because I don't think anyone would have ever, like, unless they just, literally just threw the dart at the board with angel names, landed on Exalted Angel as that artwork. Sure. Janara, a Sewer of War was from Shards. They did get Therese Nielsen to do an amazing job that we talked about on this podcast, or on this broadcast, of a Chroma, Angel of Fury and Angel of Wrath. An Archangel of Strife comes back from Commander, so that's really sweet. And Iridescent Angel has some amazing new artwork that I think is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. So I think they did a lot right with this. Aaron, how do you feel about this set?
Well, there were a couple cards that I thought was missing. I think we all agree that Linvala should be there. I seem to recall her being as high as $60 at one point, and it's just like, oof. And that was when Birthing Pod was big, and you're seeing a lot of the, what I call faux pod in Modern. You're seeing faux pod try to make room for her as well, and try to, relive that dream of bringing pod back in some form. So I do agree Linvala should have come back. I do feel like Selenia should have come back. Weatherlight was that series of sets in those books. That's what got me into Magic, and then the Krovax and the whole lore behind that I thought was fantastic. So, she to me was one of the original angels, right up there with Sarah and everything else. And the other character I would have really loved to have seen was Radiant Archangel. Again, going back to the books, I remember being on a long car ride and reading one of the Urza's books. I don't remember which one. And the scene that I is burned in my mind is when Urza and Radiant are fighting, and I believe they're fighting in air, and they're fighting and they're tussling, and she rips his eyes out because it's the Meek Stone and the Might Stone, I think. And just being like, Radiant was so badass that she ripped Urza's eyes out, and Urza being Urza just regenerates like it's nothing. And just remembering how she came to blows with Sarah, and how she was a little bit fanatical, and again, that was another one of those iconic original angels for me that I thought deserved a spot in From the Vault Angels. For me, I would have liked to have seen more of the named angels.
Right.
And
so I'm bringing up on the screen right now Selenia Dark Angel and Radiant Archangel.
Now, I'm not
so people
sure,
can have an idea what we're talking about.
Right. I'm not sure where or when the reserved list comes into play with From the Vaults, and we might be getting into that territory with Selenia and Radiant. Which, if we are, obviously we can't do anything about that. We've fought over the reserved list on many a podcast. Sure. Many a time on many different podcasts, not on this one specifically, but obviously these two are good ones. The Archangel of Strife is a really confusing one to me. Not just because you have to choose war or peace when it enters the battlefield, but also because that's like very obviously the Linvala slot for me. And so, it's that one's a little bit confusing, but I definitely like that they definitely went all out doing something different with Exalted Angel, which I'm all right with them giving it a shot and doing something weird like that. I like the new art on Iridescent Angel. I love putting the 1994 or whatever Rebecca Gay art on Sarah Angel, which I've actually gotten to cast that card because at SCG Providence 2 years ago, there was a guy who brought decks of the giant cards.
Oh my god!
Do you remember this? I did a deck tech with the guy on the 4 different decks, and he had 4 playable giant decks. And one of them was white, and you could play that Sarah Angel. So I've actually gotten to cast that card before, which is kind of sweet.
That is awesome.
But yeah, From the Vault Angels is a cool set, and it's awesome for collectors. And it's not for me specifically, but I'm very happy that it's out there. I just hope that the foiling process on this particular one is not miserable, because they have a tendency to bend a lot more than normal cards.
They seem to warp quite a bit, but I don't believe they've changed anything about it for what it's worth. So I mean, it is what it is, but
the set looks sweet, and yeah,
the cards are really cool. And so we're going to move on to another Gather the Townsfolk topic, which is the World Championship coverage team was announced, and on it was the primary commentary team of Ian Duke, LSV, and Jackie Lee, R&D member. And I'm going to bring up her picture along with LSV on the screen right now. And Jackie Lee was a pro player who got kind of absorbed by R&D, as many do, because they want the best at the game to be able to make the cards, because they know what the best cards are. So, like, you know, R&D, a lot of R&D's job is just try to keep, like, you know, the lid on the pot before it just boils over. But they want it to be really exciting and want you to think it's going to boil over, but it's actually just fine and everything's cool. But the fact that she is a female being a lead commentator, that's a big deal. People have been talking about these slow, you know, sort of bit by bit, getting females more into a visual role in front of people in the community, and this is sort of one of their ways to do this. And so I think it's really fantastic that she's getting the opportunity. I hope she does a fantastic job. I think I have personally been incredibly impressed by Ian Duke. He's been on the last few Pro Tours. I think he did an amazing job, and I hope they keep him for a very good long time to come, and it just proves that the Duke brothers are just unbelievable at all things Magic, whether they're making the cards, talking about them.
Even though she doesn't play Magic, she's doing amazing things too. The whole family's just gifted. Like,
sure. So I don't know about details about their sister. I'm sure she's as unbelievably awesome as the brothers are, which are incredible. Ruben, how do you feel about this?
I'm pretty excited for this team. First of all, Ian Duke is fabulous. Since they've brought him on the team, I've loved his first Pro Tour was a little rough. Which, if it's your first Pro Tour, it's going to be a little rough. Since then, he's become the stalwart of the team. I think that he's just fantastic. Almost every time he's in the booth, he trips up every once in a while, but that's just a nature of the beast. You know, having done a lot of Magic commentary myself, I know that it's not the easiest thing to do, especially for something as large as Worlds or as a Pro Tour. And so I'm looking forward to more Ian Duke, giving him more of a central role. LSV obviously is great at everything he does. He knows what he's best at, and he sticks to that, and he's going to be a great support for Ian and for Jackie. Jackie, I've seen do commentary maybe 2 or 3 years ago at this point at a TCG Invitational, I believe. And Magic commentary's come a long way since then. So hopefully she's, you know, I don't know if she's done any commentary in the meantime, but even if she hasn't, I think that having worked inside of Magic R&D, she has a lot of good resources with her. Every interaction I've had with her at tournaments has been positive. I think that this commentary team is young, it's energetic, it's different and new, and this is going to be a fun team for me to watch. I hope so. I hope that this is the team for the future.
Sure. And so, Aaron, I'll give it to you in just 2 seconds. One of the things I wanted to point out about Ian Duke, because I felt this was this was something to me that was very subtle, but that he does in such a way that is very unique. When he was doing deck techs for the Pro Tour, he would look at a card and he would say, hey, you only have 3 Kithion or whatever in your constructed deck. And he wouldn't answer the question as to why there were 3 Kithion in the deck, because it's legendary. You don't want to run too many and too many open hand. He would say, hey, you've got X of this card in your deck. Why is that? Yeah. Why is that? No one does that. It is unbelievable how difficult it is to find people who just they want to both.
I will say some people do that.
Some people do that, and particularly on the Pro Tour stage and the Pro Tour deck techs, it's been rare in which I've seen them have them. You know, the cards up on the big screen, and someone talk about the card that they're looking at, and not kind of pseudo explain it for the person, and then let the person kind of re-explain it. It was really refreshing, and it was one of those moments where I'm like, man, Ian's getting really good at this, because he knows. Yeah. Don't answer the question for them. Just set them up and let them explain why things happen. Aaron, how do you feel about Jackie being added to the team?
I was ecstatic. You know, as somebody who's been sort of on the front lines of this movement, if you will, you know, trying to get more women in Magic, trying to get more women in coverage, and just trying to, you know, improve our standing, if you will. You know, for me, this was definitely an indicator of progress. You know, I saw somebody on Twitter the other day, and he'd made a comment about Gabby Spartz's article, and he was like, well, you know, it's been almost 6 months since that article, and no more, you know, we're not seeing more women writing articles. And I kind of went on a Twitter rant, and I was like, you know, I think there's more to success, or there's more to progress than writing articles. You know, I think I've certainly seen more women creating videos and streaming, and I'm seeing more women attending attending events, and that all to me is progress. That to me says that people are listening, and I feel like having Jackie on this coverage team means somebody up there is listening, and so I call that success. I call that progress. And I wasn't the only one. Like, there were a number of people who were like, holy crap, like this was a big turning point, and assuming that it goes well, and I hope it does, I think that this could be big for us and for the movement.
And I think that's one of those, like, there's not always giant leaps. Sometimes it's just baby steps. Sometimes it's one person at a time streaming, one person at a time showing an event they didn't show up to, and then you kind of get a stride of like, okay, there's a female commentator in a very big important tournament who is going to be seen by tens of thousands of Magic players. That's a good thing.
Well, I think it's also important because Jackie and Melissa are the two names that people like to trot out a lot, and rightly so. I mean, they're both trailblazers. I have no shade against them at all, but a lot of times when people like me will pose the argument of, well, we'd like to see a woman in coverage, people will say, well, there's only Jackie and Melissa, and they're working in R&D, so you don't have anybody. That's too bad. And it's like, well, she's doing it now, so what do you got? What's your excuse? Don't have one.
We talked about Jackie and Melissa on the show being removed from the pro scene and being put into Magic R&D, which on the one hand is great, and on the other hand removes visible women from the top levels of competitive play. But now we're reinserting a woman in the top levels of competitive play, just in a different capacity. So I think that this is a really good step forward, and I hope that they do really well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to move on here and talk a little bit about a tournament that was announced, some details about that tournament. At Grand Prix San Diego, Cascade Games and Channel Fireball announced Grand Prix Seattle Tacoma, or SeaTac, if you will, and featuring, and I'll bring up on the screen here, featuring the Delver of Secrets double-sided playmat with Delver of Secrets on one side and Insectile Aberration on the other, as you see. Another thing that isn't quite pictured here, because they only show you the Insectile Aberration sleeves, they're making deck boxes with Delver of Secrets art. So you have a Delver of Secrets artwork deck box, and inside it you'll have sleeves of the Insectile Aberration. You have the double-sided playmat, which is like the newest, coolest gimmick in playmats. It's the Legacy event happening in November. I think it's really super sweet, and I think they did a great job at these promotional products. I said as much on Twitter, talked to LSV and Channel Fireball, and and he said, well, you can also attribute Cascade Games, Tim Shields, and I'm like, absolutely. I mean, whoever needs the credit for this, just take it, because you earned it, and I think you did a great job. So this past weekend, however, Ruben, you were at Grand Prix San Diego, and
I got one of these. Look at this thing. I got me one of them Narset double-sided playmats. Can we see this on the screen here? We got Narset Enlightened Master on this side, and then on the other side we got Narset Transcendent. So I got one of these here playmats, and it's nice. It's not bad. The front of the playmat is how you would expect the fronts of a playmat to be. It'll keep your cards safe, it'll protect everything. But then the back of the playmat, instead of having the rubber finish that, means it doesn't slide around the table, is you have a slippery surface again. So when I was attacking with creatures, and I was playing a red deck, so I was attacking with a lot of creatures, my mat would just slide all over the place. Which I found a little bit tilting, but that's just a play thing. I imagine most people that want to collect the playmat aren't going to be using it as as their day-to-day playmat. As their go down to the market and battle with your friends. I don't know how to. I just said friends. I don't know.
When you go down to the battling spot,
you go down to the market and battle. But yeah, I think that this is going to be more of a collector's item as opposed to your day-to-day grind playmat.
Right.
But
you mean like the game day champion playmat?
Yeah, you might stick your pins. You know what I mean? Stick your top 8 pins in your game day and that's the one that you use and beat the crap out of until it falls apart. This one is more of a collector's piece, and I think that that's the same thing with the Delver of Secrets playmat. The other thing I would like to do is, if I'm ever playing Delver in Legacy, which, spoiler alert, I'll never play Delver in Legacy, but if I play a Delver and then it flips, I'm flipping the playmat.
Oh, get out of here! No, you're not.
I'm doing it.
No, you're not.
Hold on, reveal brainstorm. I need to borrow your mat. I need to put my deck on your. Can I move this and then just flip the whole thing?
No.
Yeah, that's right.
This definitely seems like a collector's piece. It is a novel idea. Certainly began with GP San Diego. Ultra Pro developed the technology in order to print on both sides, which is no mean feat for what it's worth. But, you know, now I think you have the most iconic creature of the double-sided creatures that exist, that you can have this now, and I think that's really sweet. Aaron, how do you feel about the current novelty of these things?
You know, I enjoy playmats, you know, for being sort of the consolation prize. You know, I'm still working towards getting, you know, I'm getting better at my game and whatnot, but it's nice to know that, you know, I've had tilting issues and things like that, and it's like, you know, I try to find a positive in the events that I go to. So if I can go to an event and let's say I don't do so hot, at least I've got a really cool playmat, or at least I've made some really cool friends. And so, you know, this is more of an incentive for me to go to an event, because I don't go to events really to crush them, because that's just not what I do. But I like this, and I do like the fact that they have more use than being just a playmat. You know, like I think a lot of us can relate to having 20 playmats, and you're like, I'm not going to use all these playmats. What am I supposed to do with them? And you can hang it up on your wall, and it has other purposes, and I think that's fantastic. Or use it as a mouse pad, and that's cool.
Yeah, there was a really interesting article that was written on like the value of playmats, and how it's like some playmats are worth a lot of money when they first come out because they're new and novel and people like them, and some are worth a lot later on because at that point they become rare and they're hard to find. Wizards does make a point to never print the same playmat artwork twice for a Grand Prix. So this is it. You're never going to get another Delver of Secrets playmat at a Grand Prix. It's just not going to happen. And they did it, I think, the best way, again, possible to have the both sides flip. I think it's an absolute collector's item. You know, it's just like they had, it was the Grand Prix, I believe it was in Lily, that had the Sensei's Divining Top artwork on it. And it's just like, oh man, that's an amazing thing. And if you love Sensei's Divining Top or you love that artwork, there's your chance. And if you weren't there, you're going to have to buy it on a secondary market site for who knows how much at that point. In a lot of ways, people can see these playmats as helping to pay for their registration for the event. Because you're like, I don't need this playmat. I don't care about a double-sided playmat, but somebody, you know, across the world does. And if they want this thing and we can, you know, set up on a price, whether it's an auction site or a private transaction, well, by all means. It doesn't matter because I have no real connection to it.
I want a playmat with Icarid on it. That would make me so happy.
I would be
that card
so
will have
happy.
to become playable at some point in the near future.
Ruben,
So
Ruben, I'm taking off the earrings.
Oh, the burn. Feel it. All right, we're going to move into a splash damage zone. Splash damage is when things happen that aren't directly related to Magic, but they are kind of tangentially related. And there was an article in VentureBeat.com and a bunch of other places that took a recent finding that basically more or less it estimated, it doesn't have exact numbers, but it estimated, and this is a group that does have enough experience doing these things, that they've estimated that Hearthstone from Blizzard Entertainment is making $20 million a month. $20 million a month.
Bacon on everybody's cheeseburger.
The bacon and the cheeseburgers are endless. $20 million. That is somewhere in the realm of, what, $600,000 a day, $700,000 per day per month. And that is an extraordinary amount of money. That is more than Dota 2 makes. Now, it doesn't make as much as League of Legends, which makes like $120 million a month or something ridiculous. Completely insane. But that does say that this is a collectible card game. And, you know, well, let's put it this way. It's a collectible card game. It's not a trading card game because you can't trade cards. That's a big point. It is a much simpler version of Magic. It is a more random version, or not of Magic, but, you know, of a collectible card game of that type. And it has a lot of aspects that you can have single-player things that you do and you can pay for. You can pay for more packs so you can get cards so you can play in a constructed realm. You can play the arena, which is more or less like their drafting format, which is really interesting, which I've actually myself been getting a lot more into. Why? Because Hearthstone's easy to play. I've got it on my phone. I've got it on my desktop. I've got it on literally any platform I want it whenever I want it. Yeah. And it's cool. It's fun to play. It's not boring. I don't have hours of downtime. And I kind of like that. I kind of appreciate that. So I've been giving Blizzard lots of my money this year playing Hearthstone because I enjoy it. And I think you've seen here with this type of success, and they're about to release a new set, the Grand Tournament or the Great Tournament or whatever it is, you know, with a bunch of really neat cards. That it's an exciting time. They have some really cool events, which I have no idea how they work, and we've spoken about this before. I have no idea how Hearthstone
happens.
It literally, like, somehow, I don't know, like, people just fall from the sky, and when
the first 16 people to find out that the event is firing get to enter it, and no one else gets to enter.
Yeah, it's like that Pro Tour where, like, how you got into it was you called a number and said you wanted to play. That was the first Pro Tour. You literally called a number, and the first X people to say they wanted to play in Pro Tour New York got to go, including including StarCityGames.com president Pete Hofling played in Pro Tour New York. Why? Because he called a number and said, "I want to play." Number.
That's like the Spice Girls being formed. You just found a number in the back of the paper, and you're in a group.
You're like, that's a thing. Maybe we can, play in a Pro Tour. It'd be sweet. So, and a lot of people are kind of basically saying, like, look, Hearthstone's making a bunch of money, a big boatload of cash. And that's not to say Magic Online isn't making money, but imagine the amount of money you could make if you could take these rough corners, these rough edges, this UI that no one likes ever, and these bugs that keep happening, which literally turn decks off. There was this really heartbreaking thread on Reddit about this guy who sold his Magic Online collection, and one of the things that he mentions was, I couldn't play Legacy anymore after a certain release because they broke Tanglewire. Tanglewire didn't work like it was supposed to, so I couldn't play my Prison deck anymore. So, like, all this money I sunk into my Legacy deck I couldn't even use, and I'm just like, that is heartbreaking, man.
Not really.
But no, I mean, the fact that he got denied the thing that he worked for, the thing that he paid for, that's a big letdown. And I know that Magic Online is this crazy beast. It has an incredible amount of rules. Magic is a very complex game, and these are not easy things. And taking a trading card game in the real world, a paper game, to a digital platform is not easy, and no one ever says that it is. And if you want to basically say, well, Magic Duels, that's what we're talking about here, like, well, not really, because if you could bring Magic Online to anywhere, a shade, just, to use your terms, Aaron, just a shade, but not in the right context, a shade of what Hearthstone is, a more graphical, a funner thing to look at, a better UI that just feels good, it's more intuitive, sound effects that you aren't embarrassed to listen to. Like, I play Hearthstone with the sound on, and that was something BDM noted a long time ago. He was like, everybody plays that game with the sound on, and I'm like, you know why? Because the sound is really well done. Like, it's really fun. The characters that have like their own little voices and stuff, and they really care about that stuff, and they put a lot of time in that stuff. And so, I think it's just a lot of those, like, man, look at how much Blizzard is doing in what, it's like been a year and a half since Hearthstone came out, and they've gotten to this point, and they have this many players, and they have this incredible thing. Like, if Magic Online could just look just something sort of like that, what an amazing world we would live in, and what an incredible amount of money Wizards would make. I want to give them my money. I want to give them my dollars. Let it work on the Mac. Make it not look terrible. Make it, intuitive, and make the art, make the collection screen work, make trading work, make all these things that are integral. And I'm not even saying you should tear down the palace and rebuild it, because that's actually a big folly that a lot of companies get into, which is, we'll just, burn down this house and we'll just build a new one. When in actuality, you could just be making the problem worse. Netscape did this many, many years ago when they rebuilt Netscape Navigator. I'm old. They literally removed Netscape Navigator from the ground up and rebuilt it, and in the meantime, Internet Explorer destroyed everyone.
Gotta find my keys for the Wayback Machine.
I'm telling you. I'm just trying to give you an example.
Account is still active.
Well, I was trying to find an example of a very big sort of coding project that said, you know what? We're so tired of this cruft, and we're so tired of all this crap we've been dealing with. We're just going to kill it, and we're going to do it all again from start over. Yeah, and that's not always the fix. And I'm not saying that necessarily needs to be the fix, but they need to take certain aspects of it and say, we're going to make this better. We're going to make the UI better. We're going to make the collection screen better. We're going to make deck building better. And they're going to focus on it, like just hone in on it and make that stuff happen. In the meantime, try not to break everything that already exists. Try not to have bugs that just that fester and stay on those lists for so long. So anyway,
Evan,
there's not a real way for me to cinch this. It's just I feel there's a lot of potential that we are seeing Blizzard take advantage of.
Evan, eat a Snickers. You turn into a ranting Reuben when you're hungry.
I do, don't I?
You were talking a little bit too much, and I'm talking about a guy that just went off for 20 minutes. Am I right?
Hey, I got to go down to the market and play my magics. All right?
Yeah, I have no excuses. At this point, I can only apologize for that. But
I did see something. There was something that stuck out to me in this. So there's a link. in this discussion of super data research. I guess they're the company who have spilled the beans about this. And for the low cost of $2,000 you can download the entire market report. But I don't think any of us really have that to throw around. But something really jumped out at me about this in the opening paragraph. And it says here, as digital card gamers grow to expect seamless play across devices, publishers will need to rethink their game designs to account for players' diverse tastes and different play habits across PCs, smartphones, and tablets. I don't think Wizards is doing that. And I'm just saying is, they're saying that this is what publishers need to do. And I feel like Blizzard has done a really good job of doing that. Like, they're looking at what their players need and what their players want. And it's a very simple supply, demand, give and take. And it sounds so basic and simple, but you can look at a sentence like that, a phrase like that, and then turn to Wizards and just see that that's not happening. They're not rethinking their game designs. They're not looking at players' taste, and it's just like, how? Like, I don't understand. This is just, I think it's so common sense. Like,
I still yearn to see my freaking avatar. You remember back in the day when you got to see like a dragon sitting at the table and an angel sitting on the other side, or there was a birds of paradise floating there against like the big demon on the other side? That was so cool. I actually got a huge kick out of that.
Weren't there also the big circles for like your life and your mana, the red and the blue? Wasn't that a thing?
I think so. Maybe.
I think it was.
I don't know, but I remember those avatars as clear as day. They were super cool. When you were drafting, you had those 8 characters sitting around, and it would show you who you were passing to and stuff. And it was kind of silly, but it was really like, it was nice and it was evocative and it was resonant, and I enjoyed that. Ruben, how do you feel about this?
I mean, the funny thing about this is that it's always funny when we bring this up and somebody mentions, WotC doesn't see Hearthstone as a competitor. And then literally in the 3rd sentence of this article, there's a link to an article comparing this to Magic Duels. And also to SoulForge, and also to Earthcore, whatever that is. And comparing the different digital platforms to each other. And Magic the Gathering Online Digital Objects, better known as MTG ODO, is not even brought up in any capacity because it's embarrassing and we don't talk about it.
But it still makes lots of money. At least
obviously it still makes lots of money because Magic's the best game ever, and Magic Online isn't. But it has Magic.
So Magic's so good.
Magic's so good that you'll play Magic Online.
Well, the only time that Magic is brought up in the super data post is only in comparison to Hearthstone, and even then, it's seen as Hearthstone does this, unlike games like this. Like, it's never brought up in any
it's not. Yeah, Magic is not a direct. Magic the Gathering, the paper card game, is not a direct competitor of Hearthstone. I'm not buying Magic cards instead of playing Hearthstone, and I'm not playing Hearthstone instead of playing Magic. No, I don't think I know anyone that does.
No, they're talking about Magic Online. Like, they're saying, like,
Magic Online's a different story.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is in these articles, you were saying that Wizard says they don't see Hearthstone as competition. I'm saying in the articles I'm seeing, people on the Hearthstone side of things don't see Magic as competition. Like, it's
I think that they don't see each other as competition for different reasons.
Right.
Sure. I mean, and one of the other things is that Blizzard got a huge head start by seeing an industry that existed for 2 decades and said, here's what works.
Magic's built.
Here's where they screwed it up. Here's how we're not going to screw it up. And here's how we're going to do it right. And they always did a lot. I think, to me, you can see a lot of planning and execution happening in Hearthstone that was very well crafted. They didn't do this by mistake. I can imagine they worked on this for many years before they even explained what Hearthstone was, or that we're doing a collectible game or a collectible card game in this manner. And they crafted it in a very specific way. So that's part of it. They did actually have a huge head start. So Magic kind of has to catch up, but it's time. They had time at one point in the early 2000s to kind of, do the best they could with different ways. Like, at one point, again, I was shown this dog and pony show where you could play Magic Online in your browser, and it was amazing. It was beautiful. The interface was cool. Things made sense. You could play it on anything that had a browser, which was amazing. And it was like, and I was like, this is too good to be true. And it turns out It was too good to be true. So, we lived in a world where, we kind of expect things to be better than they are, but at the same time, I sympathize with the people who worked on Magic Online, and we've talked about this before, where, like, you have a new set that comes out every 3 months or whatever, and it has to be on Magic Online. They have to make it work. So, yes, some things may break, like a Tangle Wire or whatnot, and they don't want that, of course, but they've got to get that new set out, because that's just part of the wheel that just keeps turning, and they can't say, we're not going to release new sets on Magic Online for 6 months to get our crap in order, because then you're really going to tear down the house and people are just going to leave and never come back. So even if they're trying to, even if people feel upset about the fun money stuff that we talked about, where they have these points, these play points or whatever that you can't trade but you get now for winning events, I feel they're trying to do the best they can, but there needs to be a refocus of what we're actually doing. And
I definitely think that the designers of Magic Online are doing the best they can. And I know that this topic was started to talk about Hearthstone, but we moved into Magic Online, so this is where we are now.
Sure.
I think that the designers of Magic Online are working for a company that is owned by Hasbro, and Hasbro is a company that doesn't really do this. And so they're sort of caught in this between a rock and a hard place of they want to do good, but they don't have the resources, they don't have the time, they don't have the designers to actually make a usable, or not usable, a better than simply usable program. And they're caught in this awkward situation where they want so badly, all of the designers at Magic Online want so badly for Magic Online to work and be good and to not be a punchline. But they simply don't have the resources. They simply don't have what they need in order to make it good. And that's unfortunate. But it's not their fault by themselves, it's everybody's fault. But the fault can lie with lots of people, and in the meantime, Hearthstone is going to make $20 million a month,
if not
and
more,
catch up and pass them.
Yeah.
So someone's going to need to do something different if Magic wants to have an online presence.
I want Magic Online to be great. I know that I'm going to be spending money on the Great Tournament or the Grand Tournament or whatever.
The
Grand Tournament,
which introduces an ability that is indistinguishable from a Magic keyword.
You mean the jousting thing?
Joust is Clash.
It's more or less Clash, yes, and
it's basically Clash.
Yeah, it's Clash, and it's fine, but and there's some tweaks or whatever to it. But again, I'm going to be spending money on that I'm not going to be spending on Magic Online, because I have such a good time with Hearthstone and I enjoy sort of my time with that, whether it's in Arena, and they have these amazing community websites that help you actually draft Arena, which I think is really cool, and I've been using those to not only kind of help me draft better than I've been drafting, but also keep stats of how I've been drafting and things of that nature that Magic players just don't have, and for a variety of reasons. But anyway, so we're going to keep moving here. Obviously,
can I dredge in Hearthstone?
Aaron, go.
Can you dredge in Hearthstone? Not in so much as what you think of as dredge.
Wow.
Okay. There are death rattle decks. I think that there are certain decks that would appeal to the Icarid player.
Yeah, but they don't play a game that's different than the game in which you were originally expected to play.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
there's no
interact.
Yeah, there's no dredge. There's not really storm. I mean, there's not really one land belcher. Like, these aren't things. Really,
because
they're all sort of variations.
Well, speaking of the game that we knew and the game that we know, there was a blast from the past that was listed today on Reddit. Someone dug it up. It was from ESPN2, covering, I believe it was the 97 World Championships. And
yes.
I'm going to bring it up on screen so everybody can see some of it. And
this is great.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible. And one of the best things, and again, people are seeing it on the screen now, is the tracking. The tracking problem with the VHS tape that they're obviously ripping from.
So good.
There used to be a control called tracking.
This 90s editing too. Oh my god.
That you had to adjust it so you can actually see what you're looking at on the video. They begin to Jeff Donay at the time, I believe, was head of the DCI, as I recall, and he's trying to talk about, or he's head of the tournament Magic. Anyway, He's trying to explain how to build a deck, and he starts with talking the first thing you do when you build a deck is you get a land, and you get your land set 100%, and then you start adding things to it after you've picked the lands you want. There's these images that they're seeing now of people oh my god, there's pairings, and people are looking at pairings.
I love that.
They
have a cut to the shot of the pairings board.
Yes.
Are they that excited about it too?
There was this huge, their tagline at the time was all you need was a brain, a deck, and a friend, and that was was Magic, and they just kept.
Please.
I'm serious. They just kept going on, and that was their
people
thing.
don't even need that much.
Exactly. So this was ESPN2, you know, worldwide leader in sports coverage, trying to show Magic in a very highlighted way. And I think if you look at like the Dota Invitational that happened on ESPN proper with an amazing production value that was absolutely incredible all weekend long, to this, you kind of see where we've been in these things. Ruben, how do you feel about it?
In 20 years, we're going to be laughing at that, right? In 20 years, we're going to have three-dimensional holographic smell-o-vision, where we can watch everything at all angles and be like, oh, look at those stupid idiots on their two-dimensional television screens talking about their video games. How adorable. We'll look at that the same way that we're looking at this, with the capital M, lowercase a, capital G, I, C, with the spelling in the introduction of the graphic.
Oh, yeah.
I just caught a shot of Mike Long. Jesus. Oh, my God. This video is so good.
Yeah, this video is actually fantastic. And I'm back to us now, so they don't see it any longer. But, you know, this was the height of Magic coverage back in the day. And it's something. I'll have the link in the description of the video, in the description of the podcast.
Get back on ESPN2? Yeah, maybe.
It's a thing, I guess. But, you know, and I think, I mean, there was also a turning point in which we covered every round of a Pro Tour. We actually had to reach that threshold at some point as well. Aaron, how do you feel about this blast from the past?
I love it. I think that's is that Ali Roddy in the beginning with the long blonde hair?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I love this. I can't get enough of this. Like I think, whew, man.
It's terrific. It's absolutely terrific. So
they were kids. They were literally kids. Like you just have to wrap your head around that. Like these are guys that maybe are Hall of Famers in Ollie's case, or just have these reputations. And to see, it's very humbling. Where it's like, man, like and it kind of reminds you. It's like we were all young ones. Like, oof.
Yep.
Oh Jesus, I can go back and watch old Magic shows. I was young once. I had hopes and dreams of Magic things.
And Netscape.
And Netscape.
I did not. I don't believe. Yeah, actually, wow, I did have hair back then. Oh my God.
Dude, you had a little bit of hair. I remember. I was there for that, man.
Oh,
wow,
man.
I am old, and as a result, we're going to finish this podcast out as we have reached the midnight mark on Eastern Standard with the finisher. Each week, we bring a finisher where we have an interesting question that has been brought up via recent events and our own unique takes on the answer. Wizards of the Coast announced the 2015 holiday gift box this week, and in it are 5 Battle for Zendikar booster packs, some non-full art basic lands, and much, much more. So what, pray tell, is that much, much more? Ruben, you want to kick us off here?
Well, I would imagine that players who receive the Magic the Gathering holiday gift boxes will also receive easy-to-redeem gift receipts in their holiday gift boxes, apologizing to the recipients for being given the easiest thing from well-meaning grandparents to buy from Magic kids playing their game.
It could be worse.
It could be worse.
It could be worse.
Just be a little note inside that said, sorry your grandparents bought you this, go buy yourself some fetch lands.
Aaron, how do you feel?
Speaking of fetch lands, if you get a holiday gift box this winter, you'll be very pleased to receive a fourth of a Scalding Tarn, which will increase the value of each box by $1,000.
Of course you will. However, I feel that the 2015 holiday gift box owners will be happy to find out that in their new boxes, they'll find Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
What?
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
Box.
It's in the box!
Oh my God.
And if you don't know that, go watch some movies. Go get some culture. Would
you call that a Gwen in a box? Like, is that?
Oh
no?
Man, no. David Fincher's an amazing filmmaker. Go watch his movies and you'll find it eventually.
I've seen the movie. I was just trying to.
Perfect. All right. So before we leave our last slide here, I want to thank Ruben and Aaron for joining me this week. We are going to bring it to our final slide. Ladies and gentlemen, that ends another episode of Magic Mics. Thank you for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. I want to thank my co-hosts, as I just said, you guys for watching, and hope that you follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, do all the social things that tell people that we exist and talk about Magic cards and Magic things. Catch us online at twitch.tv/MagicMics, on Twitter at MagicMicsCast, and on Facebook at Facebook.com/MagicMics. Talk to us privately at MagicMicsPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMicsPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.